Let's be honest, parenting can be messy and hard, but also so rewarding. In this podcast, we'll share all the ups and downs of parenthood, as well as share some of our favorite tips and tricks for parenting using both our experiences and expertise from our professional lives as a speech and language pathologist and teacher, but also our everyday lives as moms, just trying to balance it all. We're so glad you could join us.
Hello and welcome to And Then We Had Kids. I'm Jenny,
And I'm Sheena.
and it's been a little bit of a hot moment. I feel like we've been saying that as summer was approaching, we were ending the school year. I was pregnant and it was just like time went by. And again, time has gone by. And I think that's just the story of mom life and parenting life. It's like you have the best intentions for a day and then a week or a month go by. But here we are.
I feel like though we've got a good reason this time.
I would say yes. I feel like we've been living life. And so I am no longer pregnant. I had my daughter. She decided like my other kids to come early and she came 5 weeks early. But she is here and she's doing great. We had a little, I know, yeah, we're really excited. And my kids absolutely adore her. I think I was a little worried about adding another one to the mix, and they are obsessed with her, which is great. And yeah, we had a little time in the NICU. So anyone who's been in the NICU nurses, shout out to them. They're the most incredible people after you've had a baby and you aren't taking your baby home with you. That's probably one of the hardest things I've had to do this time around. I had to do it the first time, but it wasn't somehow knowing that this is what I was going to have to do. The moment I was going into labor, I felt this really irrational sense that my body had let me down, that I didn't make it full term. And that's just not the case. My baby's great. She's wonderful. She's super sweet. But it's just like that roller coaster of emotion. So then I knew that we were going to be in the NICU. And so after I got discharged from the hospital, leaving again without her was really hard this time around. And so really grateful that the NICU nurses are the people that they are, because I had this sense of okay, my baby's in really good hands. So yeah. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing. Sleeping less, showering less, but having a lot of fun with 3 kids.
Yeah. And we've just been enjoying the summer, one's at camp, one's still in daycare. But yeah, I think we're in summer. It's here. So we are really excited to have Luci Grause from Skip and Scoot back on the podcast.
So excited.
Return guest. So Luci, welcome back to And Then We Had Kids.
Thanks so much. So great to be back.
Yeah. And so we talked last time really about what Skip and Scoot. It's this beautiful. I mean, if anybody doesn't know what Skip and Scoot, go on your social media, Google it. It's so cute. It's just these wonderful classes for moms, kids, to just get moving, and have a lot of fun with it. And also the intention behind the movements and the classes that Luci runs.
And I will say, since the last time Luci was on, my youngest participated in one of her classes. We had connected with Luci about doing a birthday party for my oldest, and then I got COVID.
I know. I was actually thinking, I think Sheena might still have a little bit of a credit.
I might.
You gotta do it again.
But I used some of that credit to enroll my youngest, who only does daycare part-time. And he absolutely loved it. He's very much an active kid. So yeah, he had a blast doing the Skip and Scoot class.
Well, thank you. Thank you for those kind words. I mean, it's definitely a business built out of passion and love. So when people say that they love it, it means a lot to me.
Great. So what is Skip and Scoot up to? What kind of summer fun have you got up your sleeve?
Yeah. So one thing that kind of carried on through after the pandemic is our outdoor offerings, and people love it. So we really ramp up a lot in the summer with that, because we still have some indoor offerings, but people just want that fresh air. It's the best time of year in Chicago, I think. And so we find our, shady spots, but in the nice fresh air. And we're doing all sorts of things actually right now. So we have classes that are public that are ranging all the way from like baby, like infant to my daughter's in our older kids gymnastics and dance class, and she's 7.5, and we have like all the way up to like 8 and 9-year-olds in that class. So this span of age range is like larger than we normally do. Normally it's, I would say we generally focus on the 1 to 5 age group. But it's really fun to get those other ages in there too. And we've really started ramping up our baby class. So it's baby gross motor and sensory adventures. And our teacher, Melissa, is fabulous with the babies. So it's a lot of fun.
Oh,
Nice.
and what do those classes look like for someone who maybe has their first baby and they're looking to, I mean, ultimately like do something with your baby in a
Right.
great time to be interactive. It's not just like, oh, they can lie there. It's great to get them involved. So what does that class look like?
Yeah.
What kind of like activities are they doing?
Yeah, so we, obviously it looks a lot different than our little fitness adventures where they're up and running around and stuff.
Totally.
So, caregivers bring a blanket, and we do a lot of like mobility, starting to, release the reflexes, working on some like crossbody movements, a little bit of using each side of the body in coordination with each other. And just like, it's all through fun and games, just like our other classes. So it's like, we're singing, Wheels on the Bus, and we're doing bicycle legs with the babies, or, we're sitting them up and we're kind of tilting their trunks side to side while they're very supported so that they start to engage those core muscles. And like I said, Miss Melissa is great with just knowing what age group is ready for what. So we try in all of our classes to really have an educational component for our adults. We want you to take what you learn in class and, use it beyond the class also, and just feel empowered after you leave to like know a little bit more about your child or the child you're caring for. And so we really try and like explain why we're doing certain things. And, if your child responds like this, maybe they're not ready yet, and that's okay. Like maybe you do this in a couple months, because we really, even though babies cannot talk, they still very much communicate. And so what I always say is that, your baby the best, you're with them much more than we are. And so if we offer you an exercise and they look happy, great. But when your baby is like, nope. And maybe it's just that they're hungry or something, or maybe it's just that they're not quite ready for that exercise. And that's totally okay. But it's really about, like I said, offering all of these activities, doing it in a group setting. Right now, our baby class is outside, so we have that great fresh air component to it. And we always try and get it in the shade with babies. And then it's like also for the caregivers to interact and have that social time as well, and to kind of meet like other caregivers. Maybe they go to coffee after or whatever. That's not, I wouldn't say like the primary focus, but it is like a kind of a good cherry on top.
Like a huge bonus, I think, from if you're either with one child, two children, and just like being able to connect with other people.
And sometimes like when you're in the stage that you're in, Jenny, it's like getting out of the house for one thing feels like, okay, I did what I like,
did it. Yeah, definitely.
My day. Like,
Even
I
with
remember
like my third.
no, but like I feel like that newborn phase is just all encompassing. And so I remember being in that phase, and it was like, if I just had one thing in the day to kind of structure the rest of the day around, I felt like I don't know, I'm a person who does like a little structure, so it made me feel like, okay, I got dressed, I got out, I was there, like so,
I'm with you on that. I feel like even now, it's not my first, my third, but if like we did one thing, if like my kids got outside, and especially in the summer, if I can get my kids outside, that's like the win. If whatever we're doing, right? Like, so like going to a skip and scoot class, like not only are you benefiting from these like great movements and interacting with your baby, but you're outside and you're connecting with other parents, caregivers, and doing something hopefully enjoyable for yourself too. So
yeah, exactly. And then like, we always bring in the component of It's a parachute, which is exciting for everyone. And we
What
have
kid
like,
doesn't like the parachute?
what adult
Like,
doesn't like it, right?
that
You know?
is very fair. Yes.
It's fun to watch. It's fun to shake. It's actually a really good arm workout for adults too.
Yeah.
And we actually love that. Like, we really encourage adult participation in all of our classes, except for our drop-off classes, of course. But so like, we love when adults say like, oh, this is my workout today too, you know, and they're like doing the marching and all that stuff. It's
Yeah.
great.
Oh, that's sweet. I
So
will.
what about those families that are, maybe aren't near a skip and scoot class, but are really just looking to get outside and stay active? What kind of suggestions or activities do you have for those families?
Yeah. So, I mean, right now we're, experiencing some wild and crazy things in Chicago with the smoke. So I
Yeah.
thought maybe it would be a good idea to kind of give some activities that could both be indoors and outdoors. Actually,
Perfect.
exactly when you're going to be posting this, but you never know, we could have a rainy day or whatever. So indoor activities are always fun to have. But so the first thing that I like to play with my kids is, we can do kind of like a go find such and such. And kids, I feel like they love to collect things and count them, or, like just go find a certain thing. So you can do this inside or outside. And oftentimes I will intentionally say something that's upstairs if it were downstairs, or vice versa, so that they're getting that cardio aspect in. So it's like, if I'm making dinner or something and they're really antsy and they want screens and all this, sometimes I'll just pull this out of my back pocket, but I'll say, go find 2 different socks and bring them down to me. And then they have to run them back up after before we go to the next one. So it's kind of like they're getting that in, that cardio in, which is fun. You can do it outside. You can say, go find 1 green leaf and 1 stick or something like that. And I think it's in part just the adult engagement too. Like, oh, they're waiting for me, or like you can say, I'll count for you, and like make up a number or actually count it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, you can always do it too. If like you're not doing something, which often as adults we are doing something, but if we're at the park and everyone kind of wants to get running around or stuff, like you can, who can get, a green leaf and a stick the fastest and be back here. So it's kind of fun in that way. I always
I
have
like that one too,
sorry.
because like my kids hate cleaning up their messes.
Yeah.
So once you turn it into that game of, can you find, the blue dinosaur, then all of a sudden they're like, they forget that they were asked to clean up and they're engaging in that activity. So that's,
And I like the piece of putting it back before.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's
exactly.
so
Like
like
a little
as a parent,
reward.
you're not creating a bigger mess.
yeah, you're like
Yes.
cooking dinner and then you have this pile of all these random toys or items next to you
100%.
that you
And
then
then
have
you're
to put
like, oh, I
away.
just made more work for myself. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's okay. Put it back before you get to know the next thing, Yeah.
I mean,
so-
and also from like a speech and language, you're also incorporating like concepts of color. You could do shapes and sizes. You could do categories of like find something you wear instead of like a sock, or like find something you wear on your feet. So like you can definitely expand from like a language perspective, and like there you're targeting without even really knowing so many different aspects, like the physical gross motor ones and then
Right.
the language piece. And you're getting them active and up and moving. So that's
Yeah.
great.
It's always great to think about how you can pull different components into like one activity. So you're thinking like an educator, like I do. And like, the other thing is it kind of like brings mindfulness to the moment, where you're really in the moment, you're thinking, maybe you could say like, check out the room and, stay in the moment and think about something that is making sounds right now or something like that. If you don't want to do like, more physical stuff, but yeah, so it's always good to bring different components in.
Yeah. Do you have any other activities that you were thinking of that could be fun for families, either indoors or outdoors?
Yeah. So my kids and I, this takes a little bit of, materials, but it's pretty easy and it's fun to make, especially if you have kids who are learning to write and read and things like that. What we do is we cut up little pieces of paper, and it's kind of like a DIY fitness dice activity that I love. If you have dice, that's great. Otherwise, you can also make little squares of paper with numbers on them. But on the first set of squares, you have each person write down some exercises that they enjoy. So it could be jumping jacks, it could be bear crawls, it could be squats, it could be tippy toes, it could be really anything, just like different ways you can move your body. And it also kind of brings in that imagination component of like, let's think outside the box. Maybe you want to be running, flying around the room like an eagle. Like, so there's really nothing off limits there, as long as it's safe, obviously. And then you either have dice or you have the number squares. And so you just kind of take turns picking one square and then rolling the dice or picking the number square, and everybody gets to do that activity or exercise together. And the number is the number that you pick or you roll. So for instance, if you rolled a 9, you do 9 jumping jacks all together, and then you get to kind of move around. Again, it's the adult engagement with the kids, but if you have old enough kids, they can play it on their own. I've found that it can entertain kiddos for a little while, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that like multi-step again for those older kids. Like if you could talk about like, okay, if we're gonna play this game, what materials do we need? Where can we find them?
Yeah. And then you get like the scissors of the cutting the paper, like all that. Yeah. And you kind of give it to them step by step or all at once. And then you can even throw them in a Ziploc and bring them to the park, right? So yeah.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Because, like, I feel like a lot of times when I bring my kids to the park, I'm like, I just brought you to the park and there's all these things, all these invitations, and you're right next to me on the bench. What's happening?
Yeah. Like, yes.
Kind of be like, let's pull this out. But then I always have to give a shout out to Touch a Spot. I think we talked about it last time. Do you guys remember?
Yes.
It like never fails. It's just always in my back pocket for class with my kids. Like, it's just like when I, watch other people's kids, I've watched some friends' kids and they just like love it because it can kind of be a race, but I try and make it a race against, like they try and beat their own time because that's always a little better when they're competing against themselves rather than friends. But so you just pick 3 spots in the area. You run to them and then you either count or, and you can tell the kids, why don't you pick a spot? Why don't you pick a spot? Why don't you pick a spot? So they each run to, and it's a sequencing thing. So then you can do as many types of spots as you want. You can do 5 and then you say, okay, now go backwards. And then they have to remember all the things backwards. So it's a very good cardio burst, even if you have like 10 minutes and they're just a little stir crazy. And you can do that in the house as long as it's pretty safe. Run up and down the stairs.
You can do stairs. You could do, I'm thinking of like an indoor. My daughter my older one is learning in gymnastics how to like crab walk. And so she's like really into like showing that off. So I feel like you could do different kind of movements to spots indoors.
Like gallop to the first spot, bunny hop to the second spot. Yeah.
Or like tiptoe, like you said. So it doesn't always have to be the running. Obviously running's great to like get energy up, but like getting this out, they're still getting energy out in a different way.
Or like walk backwards to the third spot. For sure. And like pathway practice is actually, it's good to start young, but it's actually kind of like advanced in terms of like the real younger kids. So we really start to look at that as educators in like kindergarten and first. So that would be like a zigzag pathway, and you can describe it kind of like as like a lightning bolt, like walk in the pathway or run in the pathway of a lightning bolt backwards, even like curving, or you can do twirling. So these are all different ways you can get from here to there than walking or running forwards. And it also then transfers to, dodging obstacle or conflict on the sidewalk or something like that, you just need to get around for safety as well. And it helps with, like joint strength and mobility and agility and all that stuff. So
I mean, like multi-layered. I feel like you're talking about something so simple, right? Like go touch a spot.
Yeah, you can make it.
But it's not always so like overt of like what to do or how to make it so like multifaceted, but like it's like these aha moments, like, oh, no kidding, I could have my kid do any number of these kinds of walks, or I could have them walk in a zigzag or spiral or like spin around. But sometimes in those moments you're like, oh my gosh, what am I what can I do to make this activity either expand in time or to keep their attention longer, and all
Right.
these little pieces that it's I feel like you think about it like ahead of time a little bit, like to have some of these in your back pocket. And obviously as
Yeah.
us as educators, I think we can kind of come up with these a little bit easier on the spot as we have practice and years of training and thinking about it in that way. But as parents who don't, I think skip and scoot and what you've just described, Lucy, is like it's so helpful to just take like something simple and make it like so engaging, but also really functional.
I think it also emphasizes the importance of play, especially at a young age.
Yeah.
I think people think it's just for fun, and people who may not have that education background don't understand all of those layers that kids are working and developing as they're engaging in play. Like we
Mhm.
said, the language piece, the gross motor piece, executive functioning skills, the sequencing stuff. I think it just really highlights how important letting kids play is in just their child development.
Yeah, and at Skip and Scoot, I would say we're like super huge proponents of like open play and free play, but also very much of intentional play with a little bit more thought and planning and structure.
Yeah,
It's not like we're, saying, give me 10 burpees, but um,
I would
which
not
I
be able
did
to do
this
that
morning
either.
actually. But it's like a different invitation than you would give an adult, but as long as you keep it play-based, that's why we always say it's fitness through play. Um, it really is something that not only do kids crave, but they need, and they're like really searching for it. So that's why you'll get like, if you're inside a lot, like you'll get a kid who's bouncing off the walls because they need that input for development, like you're saying. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And especially like you said, Lucy, we have had this like so bizarre like air quality
Yeah.
alert from the forest fires, and it's just like you've had to be indoors, and it
Yeah.
still looks like kind of nice outside where I am in the burbs. So, like my kids over the past few days are like, can we go outside? And I'm like, no. Um, and I mean, especially with like a newborn, I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So did I have some backup ideas that it's not just like a rainy day, but doing something inside, even though it feels like, oh, we should go outside.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for more activities to do too.
Yeah. And then another good indoor one is like always I go to like balloons, and it's, you can go beyond the like keep it up off the floor, although that's always a fun one too, but you can tie it to a string and put it, above a door jamb. So it's just out of their reach. So they have to jump up and tap it. You can do like indoor tennis with the balloon, even just with your hand, where you're just hitting it back and forth, or you can do I don't even know, like literally anything you can think of. Crab walk with the balloon on your belly and put it in a laundry basket, or things like that, where it's just like indoor safe, because yeah, it can get real hairy.
Like your classes, like, obviously, like you guys for your class, like you have materials, items, equipment that are specific for skip and student, like your activities. But if you're at home, like there's a lot of things that you can transfer over where you don't have to go buy all these like fancy
100%. Yeah.
materials. You don't need all these like sensory
Mhm.
items. And great if you have them, then you can
Right.
use them. But it's not as if you're coming on here and saying, you know what you need? You need this item in order
Yeah. Go
to
spend $300 and all your troubles will
yeah,
be gone. Yeah.
in order to like have your kid exert some energy. And that's just not the case. Like people have laundry baskets. Yeah, maybe you have to go buy some balloons, but I'd much rather do that and have that as like a material in my closet. Um, so a lot of these things that you're talking about, like it's not like this, please go buy this and that's the only way to do it. It's like looking around your room or your house and seeing how can you use items that you have.
Yeah. And on that note too, I mean, every one of our classes besides our baby class has an obstacle course component. And I love all these accounts that I follow too, that give me ideas too, but like the DIY obstacle courses where, you don't have a tunnel, you crawl under chairs. You don't have stepping buckets, so you put down some pillows on the floor, or, what you kind of just do, like, have to think outside the box. If you don't have like sensory square mats to step on, you can crumple up like newspaper or tissues and they like step on it or bear crawl on it. So, yeah, I totally agree, because, we need space savers, and we also need, because, we have a lot of kids come with a lot of stuff, and then we also just don't want to always be turning around buying more stuff, because
Right.
there's stuff right there. So yeah, totally.
And another way to include kind of like the older kids, or even like the toddler age, of like being creative, using your imagination, problem solving, all those pieces to come up with like, what can we do with this balloon? Like that, what a beautiful question to pose and then use it. So
Yeah, and I've gotten some of my favorite activities by posing that same question you just said. This one little boy, I hadn't thought of it before, but I have this mat that has like, I actually made it. It's just a yoga mat, but I made little circles with numbers, and the circles are kind of like diagonal to each other. So you end up moving in a zigzag pathway down. But he was like, I'm going to stand on number 1 and crisscross my leg, and I'm going to call it the crazy walk. And so then he's like crossing his midline, like doing like, I don't even know how to say it, but like crisscrossing his legs as he's walking. And I was like, that's genius. I love this. We're doing this now, like, so now I use it in classes, and I'm like, so yeah, no, you can get so many good ideas from kiddos, because that's their job, is to like, move their bodies, figure things out, play, learn, grow. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's a great way to do it in the summer, where there's a lot more unstructured time.
Yes.
Really give them some structured movement, create, let them, be creative. So those are some,
And
really
you can
good
even call
ideas.
it like PE class at home,
Yeah.
or and they also, love little opportunities to lead. So I always, say like, I don't need to be coming up with all the activities, just like you said, like what should we do? Like, what active things can you come up with? Or, like, you lead for 5 minutes, all the different exercises you love the most, or something like that. So yeah, it's really fun to do that too.
Those are some great ideas.
Thank you.
Any last kind of thoughts as we're diving deep into the summer months and with our kids?
Yeah. I mean, I just recommend, staying as active as possible. I really do always say, if we have an opportunity to get our kids swimming, that is a life-saving thing that is also very fun. And so the more exposure that you can have to water, I always say take those moments and work on some things that I really love are, obviously treading water. And then you can also teach them something that I learned when I was learning to teach swim is if you start to get tired and the bottom is not like super, super far down, you can let your body float down to the ground and then push off and come back up and take a breath. And so these are just some, swimming is obviously also very important, but treading water can be life-saving. So yeah, so that, and then just, engaging in the play too, as much as we can as adults. Like, I always am a big proponent of that. So I love to be active, and I know how much it means to my kids when I'm active with them in particular.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great.
Well, I love that. I feel like, and then as we kind of wrap up, I think, as I said, one more kid in my house. And then it sometimes feels like you're trying to do like so many things at once, and that you have gotten like nothing done. But if you can stay mindful or present with your kids during play, and like when you're being active, I feel like there were so many times where I felt like I wasn't able to like kind of check off anything. But because I was trying to do, like, if my kids were playing, I would try and like clean up an area, or like do dishes, or like do something small. And it felt like even the little things, it was like too much. That if my kids if we're playing, if we're going to be doing these activities together, I needed to be present and needed to be there, and not try and think about like, well, can I organize this bin while I'm down here? Like, it just doesn't need to happen right now. Just being there for your kids. And like you said, at least like my kids, and they just notice. And they'll have more fun. You'll have more fun, and you'll be able to get more out of it if you can just kind of like enjoy that moment as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always like, I totally relate to that 100%. And I always feel like it's the exhaustion that I feel like sometimes I feel as a mom is because there are so many tabs open and we're trying to multitask so much.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how can I maximize this time? But yeah, it doesn't have to be all day because, you know, we have responsibilities, but if you can even take like 15, 30, 45 minutes to do that mindful play, I totally support and agree with the value of that.
Yeah. You can see the payoff for it. Wait, it's just
For us too, I think it's like that
Yeah.
connection. Because as you said, it's like when you have one foot in and one foot out of what you're doing, it's like you never feel like you fully completed or fully enjoyed or you know, did one thing. So yeah, I totally relate to that.
Great. Well, I think we're coming up on the 4th of July holiday. So we want to also just wish everyone a safe and happy holiday. I think Jenny and I also want to recognize and honor the 7 parade victims from last year's Highland Park shooting. That community is a community that's very close and important to us. So for those of you in the Highland Park area, there will be a remembrance ceremony at City Hall starting at 10 a.m. starting with a moment of silence, and then there will be a walk, and then they'll continue on with their traditional holiday celebrations. But we really just want to, recognize those victims and all of those impacted by the parade shooting last summer. If you are someone that is struggling with the impacts of trauma, please reach out for help. But again, we hope that everyone has a safe and happy 4th of July holiday. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all of the latest, you can follow us on Instagram @_andthenwehadkids. Thanks again. And like we say, life used to be carefree, and then we had kids.